I found out the truth about him on a random Tuesday night. Not from him, not from his friends, not even from the girl he was cheating on me with. I found it by accident. And the second I read that message, my hand started shaking, my stomach dropped, and it felt like the room tilted sideways. It's strange how one small sentence can destroy everything you thought you knew about someone. I miss you already. Last night felt real. That's all it said. 12 words. That's it. But those 12 words ripped open months of lies. I was sitting on the edge of his bed, my back against the headboard, his phone glowing in my hands. The shower was running in the bathroom. I could hear the water hitting the tiles. I could hear him humming, completely unaware that his perfect little world was about to end. My heart was beating so loud, I thought he'd hear it through the walls. Let me go back a bit. I met him when I wasn't even trying to meet anyone. You know that phase of life where you're finally okay being alone? Not lonely, not desperate, just peaceful. That was me. I had my job, my routine, my small circle friends. No drama, no chaos, no heartbreak on the schedule. Then he walked into my life like a soft storm. Let's call him Evan. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. He didn't try too hard. He had that calm kind of confidence that makes you feel safe instead of pressured. He looked you in the eyes when you talked. He didn't check his phone every 5 seconds. He remembered little things. Your coffee order, the name of your dog, the story you told him once at 2 a.m. The first night we talked, it was supposed to be 10 minutes. It turned into 3 hours. We talked about everything. Childhood, fears, dreams, the stuff people usually hide. He told me he'd never really felt understood before. I told him the same. And just like that, something started. At first, it felt slow, healthy, real. Good morning texts. Long calls at night, random voice notes in the middle of the day, just to say he was thinking about me. He made me feel chosen, not chased, not used. Chosen. You're different, he'd say. I don't connect with people like this. I've never felt this comfortable with anyone. And yeah, I believed him. Because when someone looks at you like you're the only person in the room, you stop questioning everything else. The red flags didn't come screaming. They whispered. He'd disappear for hours sometimes. His phone was always face down. If I asked who he was texting, he'd smile and say, just work stuff. Work stuff. Always work stuff. But every time my gut started to twist, he'd pull me back in, with affection, with attention, with just enough honesty to keep me quiet. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself not to ruin something good with paranoia. Until that night, the night everything broke. We were at his place. We had ordered food, watched a movie, laughed, kissed, the usual. He wanted to take a shower. Left his phone on the bed. It buzzed once. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Still ignored it. Then it buzzed a third time. The screen lit up, and I saw a name I didn't recognize. A girl's name. And under it, that message. I miss you already. Last night felt real. My chest went cold. Not hot, not tight, cold, like someone poured ice water into my veins. I picked up the phone without even thinking. My hands were shaking, and then I unlocked it. What I saw next didn't just hurt. It changed me. There wasn't just one girl. There were messages with at least 3. And he wasn't just flirting. He was building full emotional relationships. Telling each of us we were special. Telling each of us he'd never felt this way before. Telling each of us the same future. Same lines. Same emojis. Same lies. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. My breathing got shallow. My ears started ringing. My mouth went dry. I sat there on the edge of his bed with his phone in my hand while he was in the shower, humming like nothing in the world was wrong. And I didn't cry. Not yet. Something else took over. Stillness. Focus. Clarity. I locked the phone and put it back exactly where it was. Then I sat there and stared at the wall while the water kept running. When he came out, wrapped in a towel, smiling at me like I was his whole world, I smiled back. That's the scary part. I smiled back. That night, I didn't confront him. The next day, I didn't confront him. The next week, I didn't confront him. I became patient. While he thought everything was normal, I started collecting proof. Screenshots, voice notes, dates, timelines. I matched lies to times, excuses to messages, work stuff to her name lighting up his screen. And the deeper I looked, the uglier it got. Evan wasn't just cheating. He was performing. He loved control. He loved knowing he had multiple hearts in his hands. He loved the power of being wanted by more than one person at a time. And then I found something even worse. His success. His job. His reputation. The image he showed the world. It was fake. Stolen work. Plagiarized projects. Ideas he claimed as his that weren't his at all. He wasn't just playing with feelings. He was living on lies. And I had everything. I could have walked away quietly, blocked him, cried it out, started over. But something inside me said no. Not this time. Not after what he did. Not after how small he made me feel without even knowing it. I didn't want to just leave. I wanted him to feel it, the way I felt it, the way betrayal sinks into your bones and makes you question your own worth. So I waited, and I planned, and I smiled at him like nothing was wrong, while I built the end of his world in my head. After that night, everything changed inside me, not on the outside. On the outside, I was still the same girl, smiling, loving, supportive, the one he thought he had fooled. But inside, something cold had settled into my chest. Every time he kissed me, I remembered the messages. Every time he said, "I miss you," I heard him saying it to someone else. Every time he held my hand, I saw 3 other hands he was holding too. And instead of breaking, I sharpened. I started paying attention to everything. How he talked, how he lied, how he changed his tone, depending on who he was with. I learned his patterns. He always texted one girl in the morning, another in the afternoon, me at night. He rotated affection like it was a schedule, and I was done being just another time slot. So I became invisible, not emotionally. Strategically, I stopped asking questions, stopped reacting, stopped giving him reasons to suspect anything. I became the easiest girl in his life. And while he relaxed, I worked. I went through every message, every email, every cloud backup. I found the folder where he kept his work. That's where I saw it. Entire presentations that weren't his. Projects copied word for word. Ideas stolen from people who trusted him. He wasn't just lying to women. He was lying to the world. I started connecting dots. His promotion? Based on stolen work. His praise? Built on someone else's brain. His confidence? A mask. And the more I learned, the angrier I became. Not explosive angry. Focused angry. The kind of anger that plans. I created a secret folder. In it, screenshots, audio clips, emails, comparisons between original work and his versions, proof that couldn't be denied. And still, I stayed. I laughed at his jokes. I listened to his stories. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings. Every day, I played the role of the girl who didn't know. And every night, I added another brick to the wall that was going to crush him. He started getting sloppy. That's what happens when someone thinks they're too smart to get caught. He mixed up names, forgot lies he'd already told me stories that didn't match timelines. One night, he told me he was out with coworkers. I checked his location. He was at her place. I didn't say anything. I just wrote it down. Another night, he said he was sick, but he posted a photo from a bar tagged by one of the other girls. I didn't say anything. I just saved it. He had no idea. He thought he was winning. That's the thing about liars. They don't realize they're building their own courtroom. And I was the judge. Weeks passed like this. And the more I saw, the more I realized something. He didn't just cheat because he could. He cheated because he didn't think any of us mattered enough to stop him. We were toys, disposable, replaceable. And that hurt more than the betrayal itself. One night, he fell asleep with his head on my chest. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, listening to his breathing. And I thought, you don't get to sleep peacefully after what you've done. Not anymore. That's when I decided. I wasn't going to leave quietly. I was going to make sure everyone saw him the way I did now. Not charming, not successful, not special. Just small, empty, fake. I started reaching out, not to him, to the other girls, one by one, carefully. I didn't accuse. I didn't attack. I just asked questions. And when they answered, I shared, slowly, gently, truthfully. And every single one of them had the same reaction: shock, anger, then silence. We compared stories. And they were identical. Same words, same promises, same lies. We realized we weren't rivals. We were victims. And suddenly, I wasn't alone. We formed a quiet alliance. Not for drama, not for revenge porn, not for chaos. For truth and accountability. We agreed on one thing. If he wanted to play with hearts, he was going to lose his life the way he built it. Publicly. The perfect moment came without effort. His birthday. Big party. Big guest list. Big ego. He invited everyone. Friends. Family. Co-workers. People he wanted to impress. He wanted to be celebrated. And we wanted him exposed. I wore black. Not because I was sad. Because I was done pretending. When I walked into that room, he smiled like nothing in the world could touch him. He kissed my cheek. Said, "I'm so glad you're here." I looked into his eyes and thought, you have no idea. The cake came out. The music got loud. People clapped. Then he raised a glass. Started talking about gratitude, about honesty, about loyalty. I almost laughed. When he finished, I stood up. He looked surprised. I asked the DJ for the mic. He handed it to me. The room went quiet. And that's when I began. Not screaming. Not crying. Calm. Clear. Deadly honest. I said, "You all think you know him, but you don't." His smile froze. I told him about the girls. I told him about the lies. I told him about the fake success. Then I turned around, and the screen behind me lit up. Messages. Emails. Side-by-side proof. His lies next to the truth. His face went white. People started murmuring. Someone gasped. Someone said his name like they didn't recognize him anymore. I kept going. Not fast. Not slow. Perfectly paced. Every word a cut. Every screenshot a slap. He tried to speak. No one listened. Because once a liar is exposed, their voice disappears. By the time I finished, the room felt different. Heavy, like something had died in there. And it had. His image, his control, his power. I handed the mic back, looked at him one last time, and walked out. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from release. I had carried his lies long enough, and I finally dropped them at his feet. The party didn't end when I walked out. It ended when people started leaving him behind. I didn't see it with my eyes, but I felt it in my bones. The next morning, my phone was silent. No good morning. No, where did you go last night? No apology. No explanation. Just nothing. That's how you know someone's world is cracking. They go quiet. Then the messages started coming in. Not from him. From everyone else. His co-workers. His friends. People who used to defend him. What was that last night? Is it true? I saw the screenshots. The tone wasn't curious anymore. It was disappointed. Confused. Hurt. He tried to call me around noon. I let it ring. Then again. Then again. I watched his name light up my screen like it used to and felt nothing. No fear. No guilt. No love. Just distance. That's when you know you've really left someone. Not physically. Emotionally. He finally sent a text. "Please talk to me." One line. Short. Weak. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my folder. The one with all the proof. And I made copies. Not to send to him. To send to the people who mattered. His boss. His team. The people whose work he stole. I didn't write anything emotional. No insults. No threats. No revenge talk. Just facts. Attached evidence. And silence. The replies came back slowly. Then, all at once, one of the original creators wrote, "That's my work." Another said, "I trusted him with this." Another, "I wonder why it fell off." Truth has weight, and once you drop it into the right place, it doesn't disappear. 2 days later, I heard he hadn't gone to work. 3 days later, his profile on the company site was gone. 4 days later, his number showed up on my screen again. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. His voice sounded different. Smaller. "Please, I need to talk. I messed up. I know I did. I can't lose everything." I deleted it. That's the thing about people like him. They don't say sorry because they hurt you. They say sorry because they're scared. And fear isn't remorse. It's survival. One night, about a week after the party, I saw him. By accident. I was at a coffee shop. Headphones in. Sitting near the window. He walked past. At first, I didn't recognize him. Then I did. His shoulders were slumped. His clothes wrinkled. His hair messy like he hadn't cared in days. The confident man I met months ago, gone. He saw me. Stopped. For a second. We just stared at each other through glass. And in his eyes, I didn't see anger. I saw loss. He came inside. Slow. Careful. Like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be near me anymore. He stood there, not saying anything. Waiting. So I took off my headphones. "What?" I said. "Not cold. Not warm. Empty." He swallowed. "I didn't think you'd actually do it." That made me laugh. A short, quiet laugh. "You thought I'd just cry and disappear." I said. "You thought I'd be another story you tell about a girl who couldn't handle you." He didn't answer. "I lost my job," he said. I nodded. "I know. My friends won't talk to me." I nodded again. "I know. My family," his voice cracked. "They don't even look at me the same." And there it was. Not guilt. Not love. Consequences. I looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who once made me feel chosen. And all I saw now was someone who finally felt what I felt when I opened his phone. Small. Replaceable. Powerless. "You didn't lose anything," I said quietly. He looked up. "You gave it away." His eyes filled. "I never meant to hurt you." "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't mean anything." He reached for my hand. I pulled it back. And that broke him more than anything I'd done. Because in that moment he realized he wasn't special anymore. Not to me. Not to anyone. I put my headphones back on and walked past him. Not fast. Not slow. Just forward. Later that night, one of the other girls messaged me. "He tried to call me," she wrote. He cried. Another wrote. "He said he misses us." And we all felt the same thing. Not pity. Closure. Because the man who once controlled everything couldn't control a single thing anymore. He didn't get his old life back. He didn't get his image back. And he never got us back. And that was the real punishment. Not humiliation. Not loss. But being seen for who you really are. And having no one left who wants you anyway. He stopped showing up to places he used to be the center of attention. Restaurants. Bars. Even his own apartment felt empty without the illusion of admiration. He spent hours staring at his phone. Not a call, not a text, not to fix anything. Just staring. Waiting for something to return. Something that would never come. The first cracks appeared in small, almost invisible ways. His laugh, once smooth and effortless, became sharp, strained. He started forgetting little things. Things he used to brag about. Project names, the lies he told, the stories he spun. Each forgotten detail made him flinch, like a person realizing the ground beneath them is paper thin. And it spread to everything. His sleep turned restless. He woke up in cold sweats, heart racing. Nightmares flooded his nights with faces he thought he'd never have to see again. Faces of the women he manipulated. Faces of people whose trust he had stolen. All staring at him silently, accusingly. His friends began to notice. The texts stopped coming. The invitations faded. He was calling, and no one picked up. Social media, once a platform for him to show off his perfect life, had become a mirror reflecting only emptiness. Photos of him alone, smiling, looked hollow. A man trying to convince himself he was okay, while every glance at the screen reminded him how hollow his image had become. He tried to reach out to me, again and again. Each call, each message, each "I'm sorry" felt weaker than the last. His voice cracked the first time he begged, but I didn't answer. The second time, he texted every girl he had ever lied to, hoping one of us would take him back. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. And that silence was worse than confrontation. He started talking to himself, pacing through empty rooms, whispering fragments of apologies he couldn't finish. I didn't know, I can fix it. The words lost meaning the moment they left his mouth, swallowed by the weight of all the lies. One night, he sent a long voicemail to someone he trusted. It was frantic, trembling, desperate, filled with confessions and pleas. I messed up. I lost everything. I didn't mean it. But no one called back. No one responded. Every person who once validated him, who built him up, had left. He was alone. The breakdown didn't just show in his words. It consumed his body. His shoulders slumped, his steps faltered, his eyes darted constantly as if danger was everywhere. But the danger wasn't external. It was internal. His mind became a cage. Every memory of manipulation, every lie, every face he'd hurt replayed relentlessly, night after night. He would replay the scenarios, imagining how he could have done differently, how he could have avoided being exposed. But the truth was inescapable. He started losing control over things that were once easy. He burned meals, forgot appointments, walked into walls while thinking. He grew quiet in public, avoiding eye contact, shrinking in spaces he used to dominate. People who had feared him before now noticed his absence. One evening, he called me again. This time, he didn't even leave a message, just a single text. "I can't do this anymore." I didn't respond, because I didn't have to. He was already collapsing, piece by piece, inside and out, and every phone call unanswered, every text ignored, every glance that didn't meet his gaze. It was a reminder that he had built his empire on illusions, and illusions have a way of crumbling. I saw him a few days later at a mutual friend's gathering. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. He moved through the room like a ghost, smiling weakly when forced, nodding at conversations without understanding, flinching at laughter that wasn't about him. He tried to speak, but his voice betrayed him, shaking, small, distant. People looked at him with quiet curiosity, pity, and a subtle unease. He realized fully that the world he had carefully curated was gone. And worse, he realized that even if he clawed it back, it would never feel real again. He didn't break in a single moment. No, this was a slow, psychological unraveling. A man built on lies and manipulation, now facing the hollow echo of every deceit. And the worst part? No one else had to do it to him. He was destroying himself. His collapse didn't happen in one dramatic explosion. It happened in slow motion, like watching a building rot from the inside, while the walls are still standing. He stopped answering his phone, not because no one called, but because he didn't know what to say anymore. Every conversation felt like a courtroom. Every question felt like an accusation. Even silence felt loud. He started staying in his apartment for days at a time. Curtains closed, lights off, phone face down. The same man who used to crave attention now avoided every human presence. He didn't want to be seen, didn't want to be recognized, didn't want to be reminded of who he used to pretend to be. His reflection became his enemy. Every time he looked in the mirror, he didn't see confidence anymore. He saw someone hollow, someone exposed, someone who couldn't lie to himself the way he used to lie to others. He'd sit on the edge of his bed and stare at the floor for hours, not sleeping, not thinking clearly, just stuck. His mind became a loop. The party, the screenshots, the faces in the crowd. The moment his world froze. Over and over again, he tried to distract himself. Turn the TV on, turn it off, open his laptop, closed it, scrolled through social media, and saw everyone else moving forward while he stayed frozen in place. Every success story felt like a reminder of what he lost. Every happy couple felt like a reminder of what he destroyed. And the worst part? No one cared enough anymore to ask how he was doing. Before, he had an audience. Now he had emptiness. He started talking out loud when he was alone, not full conversations. Fragments. I didn't mean it. They pushed me. I was just trying to survive. Excuses floating in the air with nowhere to land. Because there was no one left who believed them. He replayed every moment with me. Every laugh. Every kiss. Every lie he told with confidence. And now, every one of those memories turned against him. He realized something that terrified him more than losing his job, more than losing his image, more than losing control. He realized he had never been real with anyone. Not once. Not even with himself. And when a person builds their entire identity on performance, they don't know who they are when the curtain falls. He stopped shaving, stopped dressing well, stopped trying, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know what version of himself was worth caring about anymore. One night, he opened his phone and scrolled through old messages, not to text, just to look, to see the person he used to be in other people's eyes. And that hurt worse than any insult ever could, because he knew now that person never existed. It was all an act. And once the act was exposed, there was nothing underneath. Just a man sitting in a quiet room, surrounded by things that no longer meant anything. His apartment felt like a museum of a dead life. Photos on the wall that meant nothing. Awards that weren't his. Clothes bought to impress people who no longer cared. He walked through it like a ghost, touching things, not feeling anything. And every night before he slept, the same thought came back. If I had just told the truth. But it was too late for that. Because truth doesn't heal someone who only knows how to lie. And while he was collapsing from the inside, I was getting stronger, not louder, not angrier, just clearer. Because watching someone fall apart doesn't always bring satisfaction. Sometimes it brings something deeper, power, not the kind that screams, the kind that stays quiet and never looks back. His fall stopped being private. It became public. The kind of public that doesn't scream. It whispers, and those whispers travel faster than any shout. People didn't confront him anymore. They avoided him. At first, it was small. Someone saw him and pretended to get a phone call. Someone else crossed the street. Someone who used to hug him just nodded from far away. He noticed. Of course he did. Because when you lose your social power, you feel it in your chest first. He tried to show up at places he used to own with his presence. A bar where everyone knew his name. A cafe where the staff used to smile at him. A gym where he once felt admired. Now, the air changed when he walked in. Conversations paused. Laughter dipped. Eyes flicked toward him, then away. Not angry, not curious, uncomfortable, like people weren't sure how to behave around someone who had been exposed. He sat alone at a table and scrolled through his phone like he still had somewhere to be. But he didn't. No one invited him anymore. No one tagged him. No one checked on him. He tried to reinsert himself into old circles. Message people he hadn't talked to in months. Hey man, long time. Miss you, we should catch up. Let's grab a drink. Read. Seen. Ignored. That silence became his new identity. He went online and searched his own name. At first, there was nothing. Then small things started popping up. Posts. Screenshots. Comments. Not dramatic. Not viral. Just enough to poison his reputation slowly. Isn't that the guy who stole that project? He lied to everyone. I heard he cheated on multiple girls. People didn't need proof anymore. They had pattern. And pattern kills credibility. He tried to defend himself once. Wrote a long post. Explaining. Justifying. Twisting the story. It got maybe 12 likes. And 50 quiet unfollows. That's when he realized something horrifying. No one was fighting for him. Not one person. He wasn't hated. He was dismissed. And that's worse. Hate means people still care. Dismissal means you don't exist. He started showing up to events he wasn't invited to. Parties, gatherings, work-related meetups. He'd stand near groups, waiting for someone to include him. They didn't. He'd laugh at jokes he wasn't part of. He'd nod like he belonged. But everyone could feel it. He was an extra in his own old life. One night, he overheard two people talking behind him. I used to think he was impressive. Yeah, it turns out he was just fake. He froze. Didn't turn around. Didn't react. Just stood there. Because there's nothing you can say when the truth finally speaks without you. He walked home that night instead of taking a ride. Not because he wanted to. Because he needed time. Time to think. Time to feel. Time to realize that he wasn't just losing people. He was losing identity. All the things he used to introduce himself with. His job. His success. His charm. His reputation. Gone. He didn't know how to exist without applause. And now the world had stopped clapping. I saw all of this from a distance. Not stalking. Not checking. Just hearing. People talk. Especially when someone falls. And every story I heard about him made me feel lighter. Not because he was suffering, but because he was finally being seen for who he really was. A man who built his life on attention, now starving for it, and still not getting a single drop. He tried, of course. A man like him never gives up until he's forced to watch everything crumble. He started small at first. Texts to old friends, subtle, accidental meetings, comments online meant to sway people's opinions. He smiled too much at the bar when he saw a familiar face. Tried to drop little hints, reminding everyone of his success, of how he worked hard, of how people misunderstood him. But it didn't work. No one bought it. Not the girls. Not his co-workers. Not his old friends. Every attempt to manipulate, to insert himself back into their lives, only made him look smaller, harsher, more desperate. He even tried apologizing publicly. A long post on social media, carefully worded, almost poetic, about mistakes, learning, growth. He tagged everyone. He wanted acknowledgement, sympathy, understanding. The post got ignored. The algorithm didn't push it. Comments were curt. People scrolled past. The silence, that silence hit him harder than anything else. He was used to people caring. Even the ones he hurt. Even the ones he lied to. People would always respond, fight for him, defend him, validate him. Not anymore. Because the truth doesn't care about your excuses. And he realized something he couldn't bear. No matter how much he tried, no one would ever believe the old him existed because he didn't exist. Every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation came back to define him. He went to the places that used to be his stage. Restaurants, coffee shops, office parties. All ghosts, all empty chairs, all distant glances. He tried to act normal, tried to laugh, tried to blend in. But everyone around him could see it. The fear, the shame, the collapse of a man who once thought he could bend the world to his will. And through it all, I watched from a distance, never gloating, never shouting, never needing to prove myself. Because that's the power of silent victory. It's not in the applause. It's not in confrontation. It's not even in revenge. It's in watching the truth unfold exactly as it should, without you lifting a finger to make it happen. He tried again, one last time, messaging the girls he betrayed. "Please, we can talk," he begged. One of them replied with a simple, cold, "We don't want to." Another said, "Goodbye." One more didn't respond at all. And that's when he understood the final blow. He had no allies, no friends, no image, no control. He wasn't just socially ruined. He was psychologically trapped. A man who once commanded attention, now shrunk in rooms. A man who once played with hearts, now powerless to fix his own. A man who once lied effortlessly, now suffocated under the weight of truth. And me? I didn't need to rub it in. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to show anything. I smiled quietly to myself. Thinking of the calm mornings, I woke up knowing I would never be manipulated again. Thinking of the nights I slept in peace, free from lies, free from deceit, free from a man who once made me doubt my worth. That's the thing about silent victory. It's quiet. It's deep. It's final. Because you don't need to announce it to the world. You only need to live it. And for the first time in months, I felt lighter, stronger, untouchable. The man who once controlled hearts, careers, and images? Gone. Not humiliated publicly. Not destroyed in a spectacle. Simply erased from the life he thought he owned. And that's the kind of power that no one ever sees coming. Days passed, and life started to feel different. Not loud, not dramatic, not like a sudden victory parade. It was quieter. I woke up without dread, walked out the door without hesitation, checked my phone without fear. The contrast was subtle, almost invisible to anyone else, but to me, it was everything. I started noticing the little things I had stopped noticing when I was caught in the web he built. The smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of the wind outside my window, the quiet hum of my own thoughts, no interruptions, no lies, no manipulation. And every time I felt that weight lift off my shoulders, I realized I was stronger than I had ever been. Stronger because I had survived deceit. Stronger because I had watched someone try to break me and failed. Stronger because I had reclaimed my life without needing to scream, without needing revenge to be seen. People around me started noticing the change too, not in the form of comments or questions, but in the way they interacted with me. Respect, subtle admiration, awareness of a woman who had endured and now stood steady. I started walking past places he frequented, not to see him, not to prove anything, just walking, free, untouched by the past. And in those moments, I felt it. Power is quiet, the kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't even have a scoreboard. Because the real measure of strength is knowing who you are without anyone else validating it. Sometimes I would hear about him, snippets from mutual friends. Oh, he tried reaching out again. They say he's different now. They think he's sorry. I didn't flinch, because apology doesn't fix the years of manipulation, and fear of exposure doesn't undo the truth that's already been revealed. Instead, I felt a strange satisfaction, not joy in his pain, not cruelty, but clarity. I could finally breathe, think clearly, sleep without the weight of deceit pressing down on my chest. I realized that empowerment isn't loud. It's quiet confidence. It's subtle resilience. It's knowing the person who once tried to control your life now cannot touch your mind, your heart, or your peace. And that's when I started building again. Not for him, not to prove anything to anyone. For me, every decision felt mine. Every word I spoke felt mine. Every choice I made free. And as the days passed, I realized that the past no longer haunted me. It shaped me, strengthened me, prepared me. He remained a shadow somewhere in the distance, a lesson, a warning, a ghost of what I would never allow in my life again. I smiled quietly to myself, walking through streets that had once felt constricting, filled with reminders of betrayal. Now they felt open, full of possibility. And in that quiet strength, I understood the real victory isn't in revenge. It's in rising above, in reclaiming yourself, in finally being untouchable. He thought he could crawl back. Even now, even after everything, he tried to maneuver, to manipulate, to charm, to convince. But every word he said bounced off invisible walls. Every smile he forced felt hollow to those around him. Every step he took in public, every attempt to reclaim presence, only highlighted his isolation. The girls I had connected with, they had moved on, not angry, not seeking revenge. Calm, confident. Their silence around him spoke louder than any accusation could. He tried to contact one of them publicly, in a group chat, a social setting, thinking that maybe if he showed remorse, if he staged humility, people would forgive him. He sent messages carefully worded, rehearsed. I've made mistakes. I understand now. I'm trying to be better. They didn't reply. Not one word. He tried again in person, showing up at events he once dominated. Parties, networking events, work dinners. But now, everyone's gaze ignored him. Conversations paused when he entered. Laughter softened. Glances moved away. No invitations. No acknowledgement. No power. And that's when it began to get worse. He would see me occasionally, quietly, across rooms, streets, even parks. I didn't look his way. I didn't acknowledge him. But the small gestures, the subtle avoidance, cut deeper than confrontation ever could. He tried to insert himself into my life indirectly. Mutual friends, casual comments, attempt to paint me as unstable or overly emotional. Nothing worked, because the truth I had gathered, it didn't need witnesses. It was already stronger than his lies, already permanent, already undeniable. And as he realized this, his behavior began to fracture. He started arguing with people he knew. Small conversations escalated into tiny confrontations. Frustration leaked into public spaces. Once subtle manipulations became desperate, almost pathetic attempts at reclaiming attention. The social world that once danced at his fingertips now ignored him entirely. One night, I saw him try to approach a small gathering. He smiled nervously, attempted charm, tried jokes, and everyone, they just moved on. Someone whispered, "Isn't that the guy who—" He froze. His smile faltered. And in that instant, he realized his reputation had evaporated. The last thread of control he thought he had, gone. And the beauty of it was that I wasn't the one doing it directly. I didn't have to confront him publicly. I didn't need to mock him. The world had quietly and completely rejected him. And still I walked my path, calm, silent, untouched. But the final pieces of the payoff were still forming. Every person he had manipulated, every person he had deceived, was quietly seeing the truth unfold. Every corner of his old life, the workplace, social circles, even casual acquaintances, was now aware of the man he really was. And as this wave built, I felt something even stronger than satisfaction. Power. Not in shouts, not in public spectacle, not in revenge for the sake of revenge, but power in knowing I had dismantled the illusion without ever lowering myself to fight. He was collapsing inside and out, socially, psychologically, professionally, and yet the final act, the ultimate exposure, the last moment of karmic payoff, had not yet arrived. It was coming, and when it did, it would leave him completely undone. He was trembling now, not physically, though his hands shook when he held a glass. Not yet, but inside, every nerve was screaming, every thought looping like a cage, every memory of the lies he had told, every betrayal he had orchestrated, spinning back to him like a cruel echo. He tried one last manipulation, a final performance. He walked into a small gathering, friends, colleagues, people who had once admired him. He wore the mask of charm, confidence carefully applied like makeup over bruised skin. He smiled, laughed, dropped names, made jokes, tried to weave the old image back together. But no one listened. No one cared. No one reacted the way he expected. One person whispered, almost casually, "Isn't it the guy who lied to everyone?" Another nodded. A third glanced at their phone, scrolling past him like he didn't exist. He faltered. A small cough, a fake laugh, a glance around the room, searching for allies. There were none. He tried again, raising his voice, trying to command attention. "Wait, you don't understand." Silence. The kind of silence that presses on you from all sides. The kind of silence that isn't waiting to explode. It's already suffocating. And then someone pulled out a phone. A screen lit up with messages, screenshots, evidence, proof, everything. The girls he had manipulated, the colleagues whose work he had stolen, the moments he had lied, cheated, and controlled. They were all there, clear, public, unavoidable. He froze. For the first time, his voice caught in his throat. The mask slipped. His smile cracked. His confidence evaporated. He tried to recover, tried to explain, tried to shift blame. But no one listened, because the truth doesn't negotiate. The truth doesn't bend to charm or tears. The truth only exists, and the world sees it. People started murmuring. Some gasped, some whispered, some stepped back. The room felt heavier with every passing second. And then came the look. That moment when he realized everyone around him knew exactly what he was. Not just his lies, not just his betrayals, not just his failures, but the essence of who he really was. A man who thought he was untouchable. A man who thought manipulation could bend reality. A man who built his life on deception. Now exposed, no one could shield him. No one could validate him. No one could restore the illusion. He was collapsing. Completely. Socially. Emotionally. Psychologically. And I was standing quietly at the edge of the room. Not shouting. Not mocking. Not gloating. Just watching. Because the power wasn't in me. The power was in the truth. And the world, finally awake to it, was delivering the payoff. And even in his collapse, there was a terrifying beauty. Because he had built himself so high. And now the fall wasn't just public. It was internal. Absolute. His every attempt to manipulate, charm, or reclaim control failed. His social circle abandoned him. His professional credibility shattered. Every lie, every betrayal, every deceit he had invested in came back to define him. And I realized in that quiet moment, the most devastating victories don't need your hand to strike. They happen quietly, perfectly, psychologically. And sometimes the ultimate payoff isn't just humiliation. It's complete erasure of the person who thought they could own the world. He sank into the corner of the room, hands on his face, shoulders shaking. No words, no power, nothing but the slow, crushing weight of truth. And that's when I smiled, quietly, calmly, because the payoff had been delivered. But the story wasn't over. There was still one final layer, one final moment of clarity, one final brush of absolute closure waiting to land. And when it came, it would leave nothing of him untouched. He was empty now, not just in public, not just socially, not just professionally. Every lie he'd ever told had returned like a mirror, reflecting the man he actually was. And he didn't like what he saw. He tried to escape it at first, hiding in apartments, scrolling endlessly through his phone, searching for some fragment of approval, a comment, a message that would make him feel real again. But there was nothing. Everyone who mattered had moved on. Everyone who trusted him saw him clearly now. Every girl he manipulated, every colleague he deceived, every friend he betrayed, gone. He tried one last manipulation, a phone call, a public apology, a carefully crafted social post. All ignored. The humiliation was quiet, but total. No one cheered. No one mocked. No one even acknowledged it. It wasn't revenge. It was truth doing its work. And he knew it. He wandered through rooms he used to dominate, like a ghost in his own life. Conversations paused when he approached. Laughter died when he entered. Eyes flicked toward him, then away. He tried to explain. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." No one listened. And that's when the collapse became psychological. He stopped eating properly, stopped sleeping. He stared at the floor for hours, replaying every betrayal, every lie, every face he had manipulated. The pattern of his life was now obvious to him, and it terrified him. He saw himself as a villain, not in the stories I told, not in the screenshots we shared, not in the whispers of the people he deceived, but in himself. And self-awareness, in his case, was lethal. Every small attempt to regain control failed. Every conversation became a minefield of judgment and rejection. Every glance, every casual comment, every remembered face in the past reminded him he had no allies. And that was the real destruction, because control had always been his power. Attention had always been his currency. Manipulation had always been his weapon. Now he had none of it. And the beauty of it was, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't yell. I didn't chase. I didn't expose him again. I just existed. Calm, unshaken, free. That quiet calm, the subtle, unshakable strength, was the ultimate triumph. He could see it in me whenever we crossed paths. Not hate, not malice, not gloating, just clarity, presence, unmoved confidence. Every time his gaze fell on me, he felt it. The power he tried to steal, the control he tried to hold, the illusions he built, all gone. And the best part? He knew it, not just in whispers of gossip or fleeting embarrassment, not just in lost jobs or abandoned friendships, but in me. I was proof that he could no longer touch hearts, minds, or lives. I was proof that truth and patience were stronger than manipulation and lies. And as he shrank in his own awareness, the last remnants of his pride bleeding slowly, I realized something crucial. Victory isn't about dramatic moments. It isn't about public spectacle. It isn't about revenge. It's about emerging whole, unbroken, and untouchable while the one who tried to hurt you collapses under their own weight. I walked past him once more in a crowded room. He froze. But I didn't look back. Not once. Because the ultimate triumph is living your life, not dragging someone else down. And yet, even as I walked forward, I knew the final closure. The complete, undeniable conclusion was still waiting. It had not arrived yet. It was a gathering he didn't expect me to attend, a networking event, a casual party, the kind of place he had once used to shine, to command attention, to make people orbit around him like planets around the sun. He spotted me as soon as I walked in. At first, he tried the old tactic: smile, walk with confidence, make small talk, inject charm. But it didn't work. Not now. I didn't glance at him. I didn't acknowledge him. I simply moved through the crowd, collected, confident, untouchable. He faltered. A bead of sweat traced his temple. He laughed too loudly at a joke. No one else noticed. He gestured at people I knew, hoping for some recognition. None came. And then it began. The whisper started. She's the one who... I heard what happened. Everything's out now. He froze, scanning the crowd, trying to locate allies. None. None looked at him with respect. None looked at him with belief. Some didn't even notice him. A friend from his old circle leaned over to another and whispered, "Remember how he lied about that project?" Another nodded, shaking their head slowly. And the girls I didn't look. I didn't need to. He realized the entire room knew, not as rumors, not as gossip, but as fact, as undeniable truth. The final confrontation wasn't physical. It wasn't loud. It was quiet. A room full of people, all witnesses to who he really was. And him, shrinking in real time, grasping for control that no longer existed. He tried one last move, walking toward me, voice trembling, trying charm, trying apology, trying to reclaim the power he thought he could never lose. Please, just listen. No one moved to intervene. No one encouraged him. No one cared. He faltered, stumbled over his words. Every glance at me reminded him that I was untouchable, calm, collected, beyond his reach. And then the room shifted. Screenshots, proof, stories, messages, evidence he thought were private. They were everywhere, quietly shared, subtly displayed. The people around him saw it all, and he knew, fully, completely, that his world had ended. No charm, no manipulation, no excuses. Every lie he built his life on, exposed. Every betrayal he orchestrated, witnessed. Every person he thought he controlled, free. And I didn't have to act. I didn't have to speak. I didn't have to smile. The room did it for me, witnessing him shrink, falter, tremble in silence. It was a silent psychological payoff, not public shaming, not dramatic confrontation, just the ultimate truth laid bare. He was finally powerless. And as I moved through the room, untouched, unshaken, confident, I felt it. The final confrontation had begun. The ultimate payoff was here. But the story wasn't finished, because there was still one last layer, one last moment of exposure, one last psychological collapse for him to endure, one last moment for me to stand completely unshakable, untouchable, and victorious. And that was still coming. The room was quiet now, not empty, but tense. He hovered at the edges, trying to find a foothold, some shred of control. His breathing was shallow. His hands fidgeted. Every glance toward me made him flinch. He tried to approach people he once called friends, colleagues, allies, but even the smallest gestures of recognition were denied. Smiles avoided him. Conversations paused when he entered. Every step he took seemed heavier than the last. And then the subtle whispers began again. She was right. I can't believe he lied like that. Everything we thought we knew, the crowd was no longer a passive audience. They were witnesses, not in the sense of gossip, but witnesses to the truth. His unraveling exposed in slow, deliberate clarity. He tried one last time to regain any semblance of control. A forced joke, a fake laugh, a small apology to someone he had wronged professionally. It didn't work. Even the smallest gestures were met with cold indifference. He froze. For the first time, he realized the truth. The world had stopped revolving around him. His influence, his charm, his manipulation, they had all evaporated. He tried to leave, but eyes followed him. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Laughter became awkward and distant. The silence that pressed on him wasn't empty. It was judgment. And then, subtle but undeniable, I noticed it. The small, almost imperceptible shift in the room. People began connecting dots, whispering, showing him screenshots and evidence he thought were private. Each revelation chipped away at what little confidence he had left. He stumbled into a corner, shoulders slumping, eyes darting everywhere as if looking for a way out. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. The final act didn't need my hand. The world itself had become the executioner. He was collapsing socially, psychologically, professionally, and the silent psychological victory, the one that had been building for months, was finally nearing its peak. Because the more he tried to regain control, the more obvious his powerlessness became. The more he manipulated, the more people saw him for what he truly was. The more he breathed, the more his world crumbled. And I stood quietly, calmly, untouched, because this time, the payoff wouldn't just be a collapse. It would be absolute, complete, irreversible. But the story, the final closure, that ultimate moment of emotional, social, and psychological victory for me, was still waiting. And that waiting made the collapse even more satisfying. He tried again, not subtly this time, not quietly. Desperation drove him. A flurry of messages, calls, attempts to reconnect with people he had wronged. Every email, every text, every social media comment crafted to charm, apologize, manipulate. But the responses were the same. Cold, dismissive, indifferent. One person finally replied, "We don't want to hear it." Another simply blocked him. Even the people he thought he could manipulate, the ones who had once depended on him professionally, turned away. Their trust evaporated, their respect gone, and he realized all the little tricks, all the charm, all the lies, none of it worked anymore. The final threads of his control were snapping, one by one. He appeared at a public event, hoping to regain influence, to insert himself back into social circles he once owned. But as he walked through the room, the energy shifted. Laughter paused. People whispered, connecting past incidents. Small screens lit up with evidence, texts, screenshots, confessions, proof of every deceit. He froze. For the first time, no words came. No fake charm. No jokes. No explanation. Only awareness. He realized the room had turned against him. Not actively, not with force, but naturally, quietly, with truth as its weapon. And while he faltered, I moved through the same room. Calm, collected, unshakable. Every glance that fell on me reminded him, silently, invisibly, that I was untouchable, that I had reclaimed everything he once tried to control. Every failed attempt of his only deepened the payoff. Every stumble, every awkward pause, every flicker of doubt in his eyes, a reminder that truth and patience were stronger than manipulation. And yet, he didn't give up. He tried one last, faint recovery, approaching someone I trusted, offering excuses, promises, fake humility. It failed, completely, because the world had learned to see him as he really was. Because the people around him no longer depended on his approval. Because the power he thought he owned had never belonged to him. It belonged to truth, and it had already found me. And in that quiet, invisible victory, I realized the final collapse was near. The ultimate payoff was waiting. The complete and absolute closure, the one that would leave him powerless socially, psychologically, emotionally, was within reach. The night was quiet, too quiet. He walked into gathering one last time, a man hollowed out from months of isolation, betrayal, and exposure. Every step he took was heavy, weighed down by the crushing realization. Nothing could save him now. The whispers began almost immediately. She thought of everything. Everything he did expose. Everyone knew now. Screens lit up across the room, displaying every lie he had ever told, every betrayal he had committed, every message, every confession, every proof of manipulation. And he couldn't escape it. No excuses. No charm. No fake smile. He froze. The room became a silent courtroom. The audience, the people he had tried to control, manipulate, or charm, watched him unravel. He tried to speak. I didn't mean... But no one listened, because the words didn't matter anymore. The truth had already spoken, and it was louder than he ever imagined. I watched, standing calmly at the edge of the crowd. No need to intervene. No need to speak. He was dismantling himself, piece by piece, under the weight of everything he had done. And in that moment, it all became clear. Power isn't about control. Power isn't about manipulation. Power is quiet, invisible, relentless. He had spent his life trying to control everyone else, and now he was powerless. Every gaze on him, every whisper, every glance reminded him of what he had lost. His friends gone, his reputation destroyed, his pride shattered. And the cruelest part? He could see it in me. The calm, the peace, the untouchable strength. He realized too late that I was never his to control, that he had underestimated me from the start. And that realization broke him more than anything else ever could. He sank to the floor, hands trembling, shoulders shaking, eyes wide with the recognition that he had nothing left. And I took a slow, deliberate step forward, not to gloat, not to mock, just to let him feel the weight of truth. Everything you built, it's gone, I said quietly, letting the words hang in the air. Every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal, it all comes back. Always. He tried to respond, tried to defend himself, tried to claw back even a shred of dignity. But there was nothing left to defend. Nothing at all. The crowd watched silently as he collapsed. Not physically, not violently, but completely. Emotionally, psychologically, socially. Undone. I turned and walked away. Not triumphant, not arrogant, just free. Because the real victory isn't in punishing someone. It's in rising above. It's in reclaiming yourself while the person who tried to hurt you crumbers under their own weight. And as I left, whispers followed. She's untouchable. Look at her, calm, collected. She didn't even have to fight. And I smiled quietly, because the ultimate revenge doesn't need to scream. It doesn't need chaos. It's silent. It's unstoppable. It's absolute. He had played with hearts. He had lied, cheated, manipulated. And now he was nothing. And I was everything. The end.